Archery is one of the earliest and most long-lasting skills of humanity, which spread almost everywhere in the world that humanity went, and was the dominant ranged weapon of choice until the invention and adoption of gunpowder, dating back at least 10,000 years ago, if not longer. Being able to hunt from a distance has obvious advantages that made the bow and arrow such a crucial invention to countless cultures around the world. In today's episode, I'll be attempting to recreate this innovation myself, using my own tools and materials I sourced and grew myself. Let's make a bow and arrow. Earlier this spring, we had a chance to do a joint tour of Matthew's archery and McPherson guitars, two items that, interestingly, are believed to have a common origin, which we'll get into more later when we get into the musical instrument. At Matthew's archery, I got to learn a bit about the different types of bows from Aaron, the production manager.
So there's 4 different kinds of bows. Number 1 is longbow, and so longbow has been used for century or millennia. It's kind of the bow that is just a stick and a string, one curvature on each end. It doesn't translate well into energy efficiency, but it's a very basic form that anybody can make. I would maybe find some ash or oak or hickory or maple, a hardwood that has a lot of flexibility but memory. The next step in bows is recurve. So a recurve might be 1 piece or it might be 3. And recurve has some increased energy efficiency in the system. There's more curvature to it. So on each end of the bow, there's 2 curves. You get more energy out of the limbs. And those limbs can be wood or they can be fiberglass. The third type, and the one that we primarily use, is the compound. So the compound has massive gains in efficiency. The difference between the amount of force that you put into the mechanical system and the arrow speed that you get out. And so we use modern materials in our compound bow, like aluminum and fiberglass and carbon, to maximize that efficiency transfer as well as keep the weight down. And then the fourth type, of course, is crossbows. But crossbows are just horizontal instead of vertical and operate on the trigger mechanism.
Then he took me to the range to fire a few other bows.
Odd feather out. And then just 3 fingers underneath, and then just draw it back to the side of your cheek.
Where are you aiming?
He'll tell you after he hits it. Oh, yeah.
We also got a really cool tour of the manufacturing process, but that isn't super useful for making my primitive bow.
When you go to build your own bow, it might be tough to find a fiberglass tree.
Yeah. But it was still really cool to see the modern state-of-the-art bow making method.
It's not self-aware yet, but it's close.
Check out a full version of that tour on our secondary channel. Now, to find a tree and make my bow, regardless of what kind of bow you make, the core concept is the same of the limbs of the bow flexing to capture elastic energy, which is then released to propel the arrow. So I'll want a strong hardwood that can best capture that elastic energy. So I went out for the hunt of an ideal tree, using the native copper axe I've previously produced. Got it. Oh, shit. There we go. Got it. Whew.
As a companion piece to go with the stave bow Andy's making, which is 1 full piece of wood carved out of a stave, I'm going to make a bamboo bundle bow. This is made by putting different lengths of something thin and springy. It doesn't have to be bamboo, it can just be a very young sapling type tree, lashed together at different length increments so that your arms are thinner and the middle handle part is thicker and bends less. And this can be made pretty quickly. It just takes as long as it takes to cut down the material and tie it together. Now I've got 2 new pieces of bamboo that are shorter than the longest arms of the bow, so I'll offset them thick to thin, so I'm not building a bulk at either side, and lash them hand's length down from the top of the bow to build up the thicker middle. It bends pretty good. So now we have a pretty quick little bow, got pretty good bend. We'll string it up and see how it shoots. Got the completed bundle bow. I'm gonna test them by trying to shoot apple off of a branch. Did I hit the branch at least? was within 20 tries, right? We wounded the apple. Now we can track it through the forest by its blood.
Elm was actually not my first choice for the wood, as it's notorious for being difficult to split, but it ended up being the best option I could find. So now I'll have to struggle through to split the tree into the right size stave for my bow using a few native copper wedges and wood wedges I previously made. Elm's hard to split. And now to do it yet again. With a section of the tree split into a stave, the bow. I left the green wood to dry up for a few weeks. Then next, I outlined the rough shape of the bow using a piece of charcoal and began shaping it roughly to size. I found the copper axe worked well to chop at the tree, but to smooth it out and more carefully shape it, I tried sharpening the side of one of the wedges in an attempt to make a crude draw knife. Cold working native copper can yield some useful results, but the advantages of being able to fully cast a metal to the exact shape you want it to have has some clear advantages that I'm very much missing with this tool, but I'm still a few thousand years worth of advancements away from that. Once the stave has started to take shape and the bow is starting to show some flexibility, it's time to add a string. Bowstrings can be made from a variety of fibers and materials, from hemp, sinew, silk, or rawhide. For mine, I'm gonna use a cord made of linen. So let's grow some flax. After harvesting and letting it dry, I enlisted Annalise, a resident textile expert, to help process the fiber while I was shaping the bow.
So this is my whacking stick. It was a wedge for the canoe, but now it's a whacking stick. And this is my whacking stump, and we're gonna whack flax so that I can break it down and then wax it to be string for the bow. See how it's kind of breaking up into fibers? And we're losing a lot of this like woody stuff. So now I've broken up and kind of heckled the flax to get the woody bits out. I'm going to wax it to kind of keep the fibers together as I spin it into a bowstring. And this helps the fibers hold together and gives it more strength. So once I've spun it, you can't really pull it apart.
Looks like a hairy bar still.
Yeah, I know. This is my finished bowstring, and once we get some notches in the end of the arms here, we can string it up and start tillering a little more finely.
Now with the bowstring comes one of the most important steps, tillering. But first, we'll need a tillering stick. Using the tillering stick, I slowly apply tension to the bow and observe what areas are bending and which aren't, and slowly narrow the stiffer regions, until I can get an even bend all along the bow. As this is my first bow, I had a fairly hard time seeing where it was and wasn't bending, but was offered the help of a member of my Discord channel, Deer Hunter, who helped guide me in my tillering as I slowly tried to get closer and closer to a well-balanced bow. Meanwhile, Annalise got started on making the arrows.
I'm looking for pretty straight young sapling trees that don't have a lot of branches, so they won't have a lot of knots, to turn into arrow shafts. This is a pretty good diameter. There's not a lot of branches. I'll use the flint saw to cut it down. I'm gonna use this draw knife that Andy made out of copper and wood and pitch to take off all the branches and start debarking it. By the rules of the channel, I should be using this draw knife to debark this branch, but I'm gonna cheat a little bit and use this ridge knife here to speed things up a little bit. And it's really sharp. It already cut me, and I barely feel it, which is a sign of a good knife.
Thank you to today's sponsor, The Ridge. They sent us some of their cool products to try out. They are makers of this nice quality knife. Why is there blood on this? Anyways, very sharp. We got this waterproof bag, using for our gear. Then their flagship is the Ridge wallet, and their wallet is nice and compact, which helps minimize the random crap you keep in your wallet. So you go from a bulky wallet to just this nice small little guy you can put in your pocket. Basically indestructible. They come with a lifetime warranty. If you don't like it, you get a full refund. Get 10% off today with free worldwide shipping and returns by going to ridge.com/HTME. That's ridge.com/HTME and use the code HTME. The link is in the description. So next I'm just gonna add the fletching. These are the feathers left over from the turkey from our Thanksgiving special. Just gonna cut them down the stem, then trim them, tie and glue them to the end to help the arrow fly straight. Now, for some arrowheads. Some of the first were made from flint, which I discussed some when I most recently learned flint napping at Bunser Farm in England. How hard is it to nap a arrowhead?
It takes longer to learn to do an arrowhead than it does a hand axe. But again, the Mesolithic periods, arrowheads from that period, they're not fancy at all, they're just a point. If it's a point, it's going to work. Barbed and tanged arrowheads are the hardest ones to make. They're from the Bronze Age, but that is just someone trying to say, look how skillful I am.
So can you just use like a shard that's roughly the right shape?
Yeah, so basically, as you're making an axe head, you're taking off sort of thin flakes and you just keep them to one side if they're perfect for arrows, and then when you need to make an arrow, then you've got one already made.
Having done a fair amount of both flint and obsidian knapping, I have a solid collection of shards to choose from, so selected some obsidian candidates. Then I also have another material that was used for arrowheads, native copper, and tried to cold work them into rough arrowhead shapes for another option. Now to string it up and give my bow and arrows a test fire. To put the bow to the test, we headed to Schaefer Performance Archery in Burnsville, Minnesota.
What do you think, buddy? Huh?
All right, so I got the completed bow here. Fortunately, during the tillering, a little bit of a crack started to form. Kind of what happens when you're an amateur and you're just learning it is you thin some areas too much and put too much stress. Challenge of the native copper tools that they aren't very effective. So I have to give it a lot of force, and I went a little too far. So I don't know how much poundage this will hold. So I'm gonna start low. Right now it's pretty low tension, maybe 30 pounds, and I'll go up from there and see what feels comfortable. Give it a shot and hopefully it doesn't blow up in my face. String broke. And then it broke it. One arrow down. I think it's the arrows. I wonder if we can try one of theirs. Arrows aren't perfect, and then the bow isn't perfect. Together it's pretty hard to shoot. There we go. But with the store-bought arrow, it does a little bit better. Still hard to aim. So if I was up against like a mammoth, I could probably hit it. I don't know if I'd even feel it, but I could hit it. Not necessarily very strong. Let's check the poundage.
About 27 pounds. 30 pounds of a modern bow is more than adequate. With 30 pounds, we tell people absolutely no farther than 20 yards.
All right, so about 8 yards right here, so be about twice this distance then?
Yep.
So it's just a little bit under the legal limit then.
It used to be 40 pounds, but they recently, in the last few years, changed that to 30 pounds. That arrow hit dead center and bounced out. All right, we'll try it again here. Oh, we got it to stick once. So, old bow, newer arrow. We're gonna see if we can get this thing to stick in the target here. Here we go. Look at that. Success.
Better be a bullseye.
I know, here we go. It's for all the marbles. Relative success.
All right, so the draw weight is a little bit on the light side. It hasn't exploded on me. I'm able to shoot it. It's a lot easier with a modern arrow. Over-tillered it a little bit, which caused a lighter draw weight. I think if I tighten the bowstring up just a little bit, we can get it just within the legal limit and potentially could use it to hunt. A decent range. Actually pretty good. They say they can actually tell if somebody's an archer just by their skeletal remains, and I can see why. Then for a comparison, we check the arrow speed for my bow to compare it to one of Matthew's modern compound bows. Really better than me.
The primitive bow, when we shot a modern arrow through it, came out at about 90 feet per second. At this speed would have been very hard to inflict any damage any farther than maybe 5 or 10 feet away. Very primitive, very close range, tremendously different than what we're using today.
So should we get Matthew's bow and see how that compares?
Jump forward a few thousand years?
Yeah.
No problem. This is the Matthews Vertex bow. It's absolutely state-of-the-art. Machined out of a forging. Limbs are fiberglass. We use carbon fiber. The highest performance bow that you can buy right now. It's extremely quiet to shoot. It's extremely powerful. You'll see there's a little bit of an advantage with the newer bow.
Basically the same. It's over 300 feet per second, 3 times faster than mine. While my bow and arrow making could use a little improvement, I managed to make a successful weapon that I wouldn't want to get shot with. Adding up the costs, this bow took a little over 43 hours to finally complete, equaling almost $350 if I was paid minimum wage. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on our upcoming projects. Up next, we'll finally start getting into smelting and casting a few different metals, as well as trying out some other forms of projectile weapons that predate the bow.
Sit. Good boy. Just stay. Right there. You look good.
If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and check out other content we have covering a wide variety of topics. Also, if you've enjoyed these series, consider supporting us on Patreon. We are largely a fan-funded channel and depend on the support of our viewers in order to keep our series going. Thanks for watching.